Hey everybody, Neil Thompson from Teach the Geek here. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Yesterday, I attended two conferences. You're probably wondering, how did I do that? Well, luckily, both of them were about 5 minutes apart from each other. One was at the convention center, and one was at a local or a nearby hotel. I just walked across the street to go to each event. What I noticed, I wanted to talk about three things that I noticed about the presentations that I sat in on at both conferences. One was a pitch competition, and the other one was more technical type presentations. So when it came to the technical presentations, a couple of things stood out for me. One is that it was it was so difficult to understand some of the presenters because they spoke so quickly. And I know this is something that I struggle with. It's definitely something that people have brought to my attention, is that sometimes I can talk kind of fast. But it becomes even more of an issue if the person who's talking speaks with an accent that's different than those who are listening to the audience. For instance, someone perhaps whose first language isn't English and they're talking really fast in English to an audience. It's already difficult enough to understand the person because they're speaking quickly, but throw that accent in there and it makes it even more difficult. I think with conversational speaking, 120 words per minute is the average for most people. So that's something to shoot for. And a way to do that is to read a blurb that's 120 words. Just read it at your natural rate, and then you can figure out how many words per minute it is, because you know how long you read it for, time the how long it took you to read that 100 words, and then so basically you have the 100 words and you divide it by the number of minutes it took you to read that 100 words, and then you'll have your words per minute. Aim for 120. Hell, try getting slower if possible, especially if you're giving a technical presentation. It's already difficult enough for people to understand what you're talking about. So if you slow it down, it just helps people really digest what you're talking about. So that's one. And then another thing that I noticed is that there were a lot of pictures, a lot of visuals on the slides. I've said in previous videos that you should minimize the amount of text on a slide and use visuals instead. But man, if there's a whole lot of visuals on the slide as well, that's not good either, because it overwhelms an audience member. I just remember being in the audience just thinking, what am I supposed to be looking at any given time? Because there's so much stuff. At some point I just stopped looking at altogether because I couldn't be bothered. So I'm more of a fan of just having a couple of visuals at the most on a slide at any given time. Again, it just helps with people digesting whatever you're trying to convey. So that's what I noticed from the technical presentations. And the one thing I noticed from the pitch presentations is the lack of stories. But these people, there were about 7 pitches altogether, and each person pitching had about 10 minutes to pitch. And the glaring thing that I noticed about the pitches is that they didn't really have a whole lot of stories in their pitch. And the pitch was for their company to win the competition and probably get some money. So if you really want to get people's attention, especially the judges who are judging your pitch, start it off with a story. I mean, what was the story behind the product? Or even put somebody in the position of using your product. Why would they be using your product? How did they benefit from using your product? Once you have that story ingrained in people's mind and they've heard it up front, they're way more likely to listen to the rest of the presentation. But if you just start off with, well, this is my company, this is what the problem is, and just go down that path just in that order, it's very difficult sometimes for people to put themselves in the position to even care about what you're talking about. But using stories, that's a great way to do it. So those are three things that I noticed from the presentations that I looked at, or that I sat in on. Number one is making sure that you slow down, especially if you have an accent. But want to make sure people understand. Number two, you want to make sure that you don't overcrowd your slides with a whole lot of visuals. It can be rather overwhelming to people, especially those outside of your field of expertise. And then three, use stories when giving presentations. It really helps in just getting people excited and more likely to listen to the rest of your presentation. Hopefully this has been helpful. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe.